So hello everybody and welcome to this panel discussion on founders fundraising in the leisure marine space. So we have a really exciting panel for you here today. So initially we'll just do some introductions so you know who everybody is, and then we'll take the conversation away. Tom, do you want to start?
G'day everybody, my name's Tom Loefler. I'm co-founder and CEO at Hullbot. We develop autonomous underwater robots that clean hulls gently, early and often to maintain them at peak efficiency year-round. And we're based out of Sydney, Australia. So I'm excited to tell you a bit about our journey in raising capital and what it's taken to get to where we are today. And excited to be here on stage with Gabbi, who does an amazing job for startups in the space.
Thank you. Neil?
Awesome. Awesome. Nice to meet you all and to be here today as well. Thanks, Gabbi, for the opportunity. Be excited to be able to talk with these guys as well. I've known Tom for quite a while through the startup ecosystem. So I'm Neil Mans from ZeroJet. We built electric jet propulsion system down in Auckland, New Zealand, also from the bottom corner of the world. We specialize in building a full turnkey solution for boat builders that they can drop an entire electric propulsion system into a boat and make it electric in as little as 2 hours. This is unheard of, and I don't even think you can build a combustion boat that fast. So we do everything from the battery management systems, the batteries, the electronics, the chargers, the whole basically works, the jets. So it's a full solution that basically removes all the hassles and challenges from boat builders. So we've raised a good amount of money, got a good team at home, and look forward to telling you about what we do.
Thank you very much. And Jonas?
Yes, I'm Jonas Genchel, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of ZPARQ. And we have developed an electric pod motor for leisure boats and commercial vessels. And our submerged pod motor is up to 10 times smaller in volume and weight than any other pod motor. And it's very modular and scalable. And just before the summer, we also raised a bit of money. So I'm happy to speak about that today.
Awesome. So how about if we just begin with your fundraising journeys? So how much you've raised to date, if that's across multiple rounds, just to kind of give some context before we deep dive into pros and cons of fundraising, how to reach investors, etc.
Sure. So I'm happy to go first. So we've raised quite a number of rounds. We did a series of pre-seed and angel rounds in Australia. We raised a seed round in 2021 from Australian and international investors, with quite a few US investors coming in on that round. And at that stage, we were raising capital to deploy a fleet of 10 fifth-generation robots under a fortnightly cleaning service model in Sydney Harbour, mostly doing racing sailing hulls. And from the success of those robots in the field, so they've been operational for 30 months, some of them for 30 months now, we developed an entirely new robot and taking that to a Series A. So we're currently raising $10 million from a mixture of US and European VCs, and using that to bring our product internationally. We deploy our robots ourselves, so we full stack. We design, manufacture, do all the engineering, everything in-house, and then operate as a service. So we offer fleets of operators of vessels, a way to keep their hulls clean throughout the time the vessels are in the water. So for the ferry operators, which we're working with, that saves them 10, 15, and sometimes 20% in fuel, which is very significant. And so we're part of a wave of new innovations coming through that are, clean tech products, like these gentlemen here, building things that are a new way of doing things enabled by technology that's much more sustainable, much more intelligent. And that enables us to raise capital both within the marine industry, but also from investors that are interested in doing something about the climate crisis. And a lot of those pools of capital are quite large at the moment. So that's giving us a lot of optimism about closing a $10 million round this year, but we're not there yet.
Great. And Neil, what was your fundraising journey like? How much have you raised to date?
So that's been an interesting journey. Fundraising for hardware startups is hard. Much like Tom, did a few angel rounds, a couple of seed rounds, and have just done a Series A and a Series 8.5. So we've got that's about just over 15 million on the last round. So that's going really well. We've got a good team of people. One of our products is luckily sitting in the Design Award cabinet right on the front over there. So we've been nominated as one of the Dame Design Awards for propulsion. And much like Tom said about the money flowing around and sort of the clean tech space, if you look to the left here, or to your right, the abundance of electric and alternative propulsion systems that's sitting out here makes it a clear no-brainer that the world is moving in a new way. And so for us, very much about what we do is looking at the future opportunity and things. And it's taken the combustion industry, or the fossil fuel industry, 30 years to put all the outboards and engines on boats out there. Many boats are still with 30-year-old Johnson motors on them running. So it's taken 30 years for the industry to supply what is sitting out there at the moment. So even if all of those players immediately stopped today and immediately started building electric things, it's going to take 30 years, 20 to 30 years, to replace what's out there. So there literally isn't enough manufacturing capability in the world to meet the demand of how continents like Europe is changing laws and regulations. So this really, makes a great playground, a space for companies like ourselves to step into this and to look at, how can we change things? How can we modernize things? And how can we basically bring the boating industry, which is quite far behind, up to where automotive industry is today? So thanks to, yes, there is a certain amount of luck that's involved in timing of things and these things, and I think we are lucky that there is a big wave and a lot of effort around the world collectively being put into sustainable technology. So that's made our journey a little bit easier, but definitely being down on the bottom corner of New Zealand, and especially through the pandemic times, everybody got scared, like those with deep pockets pulled back, and there are safer places to put your money than in hardware and in risky startups and things. But we're lucky that there are a bunch of people out there that understand the wave the world is moving in a certain direction, like the products around us. So for those that are very sophisticated investors, they will take the chance and they will keep investing. So it's finding those people. And it's also continuing to stand behind the product that you do and just build and do the best you can, because this is a busy space. There's a lot happening. There's a lot of vaporware around. But yeah, you just got to keep working hard and keep at it.
Good advice. And Jonas, what about you? What was your fundraising journey like?
Well, we started ZPARQ about 3 years ago, and when we started the company, we got into this accelerator program at the beginning, and that has helped us a lot in our fundraising. But it took us almost 3 years until we actually did got money, and we started our fundraising to get this money almost a year before that, or even more. And the time between we got the accelerator and started the company until we got the fundraising, we sort of bootstrapped the company quite a lot. So we were able to have the endurance and wait for the right type of investors, because when we started the fundraising, the recession hit the world, and no one wanted to invest in hardware. And but we are lucky that there is impact investors, because we now have three of them who were willing to invest in hardware. So yeah,
I think the interesting thing for all of us is, part of the fundraising journey for hardware founders is there's a time when you're actually physically building the product yourselves. Yeah. You're actually in there. You believe in it enough to work on it, without pay for years on end. I know you did.
No, we did. Yeah, you
did a whole lot of different things.
Yeah.
And you're running a whole factory, and you've got passionate engineers working there, and you're iterating, and you're working really quickly and making new things. And then you have to learn this completely different skill set of finance without any good numbers to get people to invest in. So you have to tell the story of a future business and understand all the different business models and all the different stakeholders. And so startup accelerators play a vital role in not only providing that education to founders of all different types of businesses, but creating a community where, so Neil and I were connected because you went through StartMate.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, I don't know what your experience was, but when you finished it, it was really positive, and that's how we connected. I was like, should we do this as well? So how was StartMate for you?
Great sort of a segue into that, Tom. Yes, StartMate and accelerators for those, for those who are looking at getting into the space, and even investors that are looking at the space. Look at your incubators and your startup and your accelerators, because those are generally companies that have been pre-vetted by a bunch of people in order to get into the accelerator. But then, as Tom said, the network and the audience and just what is around that, and also from the marketing side of how you learn how to build on that. That was probably one of the most valuable things for us. It really, literally accelerated us. I remember, as an engineer stepping into this world, I remember some very frustrating moments debating with advisors and investors where you've got to sell your product before it's ready to sell. And arguably, I think that's probably the most valuable advice I've ever been given in my entire life, because you're getting in front of your customers and getting out there and pushing those things. So, do you have any? You mentioned accelerators. You've been part of that.
Yeah. Without them, I don't think I would be here today, because they helped. It's such a different world that we're coming into, and as you said, selling the product before it's actually finished, and setting up the business plans and everything around the company, and creating the framework of the company before you actually have the product ready, and you actually don't know how the market fit would be and everything. It's been very valuable for us, and also with the networking they have. And also with Yachting Ventures now. I mean, to be part of this kind of community is vital to be seen, and to get interest from investors.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like across the mentors that are actually within ecosystem, like the people that you organize for us to be able to meet through Yachting Ventures, are incredibly valuable. Sometimes they can just give you an idea that you just wouldn't come up with, or they give you sparring practice because they keep asking you really annoying questions that you hate getting, but you get really good at answering them quickly, which is a good skill. You meet other entrepreneurs and share information. But I think absolutely critical is a network of investors that actually do provide funds into your space. So believe it or not, there are ocean specialist investors or impact funds that only invest in things that are in the ocean. And there are also investors that for some reason don't. And I often give them a bit of shit, because they'll tell you with a straight face that they're an expert in anything that's across, medtech, aerospace, quantum, this, that, and the other, stocks, all this stuff, but not if it's wet. Oh no, we don't do marine, because what you'd say, the thing might occasionally get wet, and so you can't invest in it. I think it's absurd. So, yeah, I think, No,
you're definitely right that there are a number of ocean-related funds out there, but I guess what advice would you give for anybody maybe thinking about raising in terms of actually finding those investors? So, how did you guys go about that? Obviously the accelerators do help, and building that network as early as possible, but any tips on finding the investors?
Oh, wow. Startup events, networking events, business events, award events. You want to get in front of as many people as you can. When you first start off, you're a nobody. You need to create a name for yourself. It's just get on the ground, get out there. and start small. You don't necessarily need to go out and raise a huge amount of money. Like, if we're from the bottom corner of the world in New Zealand, in Australia, sort of part of it, it's just different for you as well. But Europe and America, there's access to a lot more liquid cash, and cash available for investments and stuff. So quite often these people will start really big, and we judge ourselves and compare ourselves to how some of these other companies start and the rates, the money that they're raising. Where for us, it's more about go small, don't give so much away, and basically achieve something, and then go a little bit more, and a little bit more. And this raising money is unfortunately a necessary evil that all startups have to go through, but it's also the most valuable and important thing for your business to go through, because every few months to every year or 2 years, you're doing an incredibly critical health check on your business, and you're engaging with so many industry experts from so many different fields that, as Tom mentioned, you only need 1 or 2 people to throw a question or a comment at you, and you're like, the biggest risk is not knowing what you don't know. And when you go out and you engage with these people and you do health checks on your business, fundraising it is crucial, and it's also a health check, and it allows you to navigate and pivot to become successful. So it's difficult, and you get questions thrown at you. They're like, how am I supposed to know that happens in scenario X in 2028, when this country is no longer an island? You get some weird questions thrown at you sometimes, but there's a lot of valuable people out there that, as a founder as well, I think the biggest thing is, much like your investors are qualifying you, qualify your investors. What's their experience? What have they done? Who have they invested into? Go and talk to those companies, because you're getting married. It's a relationship you're going to be in for a long time. You want to know what these people are like in the worst situations, the worst scenarios. So much like these investors are qualifying you, don't be scared to qualify them.
And use them.
Yeah.
Because they have network, they have done that. So be tough to them as well, and let them work as well. Not only put in money, but use their network, use their experience and their knowledge.
Get smart money, not just money. Get money that has a lot more tied to it. As you say, people with networks, experience. There's plenty of money in the world. It's easy to get, but get money that's valuable.
100%. I totally agree. I think it's really important to have a diversity of investors as well that can help with different areas. It is good to have some investors that are not passionate about your space.
Yep.
So just to sense check your business model, we do have a lot of investors who love boats and they want their hull to be cleaned by a robot, and they fall in love with the product. And that's great. You can get capital from them. But it's also great to have investors who are just completely dispassionately have looked at the business plan, looked at the opportunity, done their research, and then specialist funds, like there might be an ocean impact fund. And some of the due diligence that we've been through at Hullbot would blow your mind in terms of essentially more work than we've had to do for some of the grants, which is another thing we should probably talk about, in terms of analysis on how much fuel we actually save, what damage, if any, is there to coatings, what regulations do we need to comply with in terms of capture or otherwise of invasive species and so on, what other technologies are there in the world that are coming online that might either be competitive with us or well aligned with us. We obviously increase the efficiency of vessels, which means they use less fuel, but it's also vital for electrification and vital for enabling certain ferry routes, for example, to transition over to zero emissions, which would only be possible if their hulls were actually at the design speed. But yeah, we mentioned grants. Grants are another really important part. Government has a role to play. And it's something that you have to get pretty good at pretty quickly.
Yes.
And there's often a certain way you have to massage your business to fit this particular grant. And you get good at that. But I think if you can get that non-dilutive capital in the mix, being good at leveraging debt, being good at getting access to whatever grants are available in your region is a critical component of the fundraising process as well.
Yeah, I would echo that, Tom. We haven't raised as much money as many of our competitors out there, but the reason we haven't had to is because of the grants that we've had. So New Zealand is known as one of the best places in the world for starting a business, and thanks to our clean green economy and do good, do well, our government is very supportive of these kind of things. So there's a huge amount of grants, various grants. There's tax grants, there's R&D grants, there's grants for getting staff. There's all sorts of things. So
what's the R&D in New Zealand incentive?
What's the R&D?
R&D tax incentive. Is that how it's set up?
Yeah, there's an R&D tax incentive. There's quite a few.
Okay.
So my partner's probably the better one to answer the exact details on that. But I do know we've dived heavily into grants, and I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for the support of my local government and the grants. So that is probably some of the best cash you can get as well. 100%.
But I think it's pretty similar to look for investors and apply for grants, because you need to. You get a lot of no in the beginning, and you always get better to write the applications and to approach investors. So you can always start by looking for these that is not that interesting, just to get some feedback on your pitch deck, on your how you you get the questions. The same with the grants. You learn from every grant you apply for. So start small and not the one that you would mostly like. Start with those that you don't really care about, and then you learn from them and just keep getting better until then you can approach the big ones, or the ones you really think is attractive for you.
Excellent advice. I'd also say that if you have a business where you can go out and make sales without needing to do a huge amount of upfront R&D, then absolutely do that. And if you can at least run through the sales process to fully understand how customers will respond even before the product is ready, it's incredibly important to validate whether customers will actually buy what you're making. I mean, in the case of Hullbot, it's surprisingly difficult to make autonomous underwater robots. And I'm saying that because I understand that people think it's hard, but it's harder than you might imagine. It's much harder than drones, for example, because in the submerged environment, there are no sensors that are available that work to the accuracy required to do robotics. You can use certain kinds of sonar, but if you all know what kind of information you get from the fish finders and other transducers on the vessel, it's pretty limited, pretty hard to build a 3D understanding of a vessel that's rolling around at that. So we've actually had to develop, some fundamental technology, and that's what the investment is for. But there are other businesses that we know where it's possible to explain to people what they're building and build those relationships with customers in advance. And that streamlines the fundraising process. And in our case, we were probably a bit too stubborn to do that early on. We're like, come on, guys, it's a good idea. Small robot's going to go in the water, clean the hull overnight. Everyone's going to want one. And they're like, who's going to want one? We're like, everyone. Everyone's going to want one. And they're like, who? And we're like, just invest. And we got pretty good at that. We got pretty good at getting letters of support and super yacht captains and so on to say we'd buy 5 of these if it was ready, or just investors who understand it. Now we work with ferry operators, and so in that market, we're able to make a very compelling case. Fuel is often the largest cost, and what passes for clean on a sailing yacht hull is dramatically cleaner than what passes for good enough on a ferry hull, which is often, we don't have a problem, Tom, we cleaned in 2019, which is a nice way of saying we're using an enormous amount more fuel than we would be using if the hull was clean. And we can show that with data. So I wonder whether you have any advice on the all-important data or other ways you use information to make the case to people.
Do you want to take one?
Well, I mean, sustainability-wise, we have done a lot of calculation how we can compare to our competitors, both like fossil fuel and electric, to compare our towards the others. And I mean, the more you can show, the better, and the more analysis you can do beforehand and show that helps your case is definitely very good.
Yeah. Sorry, Gabbi, if I can...
No, I was just going to direct the conversation slightly more onto fundraising. So just before we finish, because we only have a few minutes left, I wanted to quickly touch on valuation. So you mentioned getting your head around like finances for somebody that's not necessarily a finance person. What were the challenges you faced around valuing your businesses when there's not really much to show for the business? And what did that whole negotiation on the valuation look like when you were chatting to investors?
In our case, we simply didn't negotiate because if you don't have anything to go on, you may as well set the valuation and just and give people the option. Here's the price. This is what we think we're worth. It's a small investment for you. It's very meaningful for us. Do you want to participate in this journey? And I think it's a better place to spend your time when communicating to investors. You're basically explaining then if your business makes sense or the technology you're bringing to the world makes sense, rather than trying to argue back and forth about what it's actually worth. It's very hard to value a business that is not actually operating and generating a profit month on month. So that would be my advice. Obviously, you should be opportunistic if the person you're dealing with can actually help and actually add value and really knows what they're talking about. And that's where startup accelerators become so critical, because they essentially become a chaperone for the fundraising process, often investing in you themselves and then introducing you to other investors and being able to coach you on the right level. But in our case, we drove a pretty hard bargain with the accelerators themselves. So, yeah.
I'll try and go quickly. For us, I build engines. So there's quite a lot of, most of the large engine manufacturers are publicly listed companies, so a lot of their data and sales and things are available. So for us, it's looking at market trends over the last 10, 20 years, and looking forward at what industry is predicting going further forward. So we used a lot of industry reports that come from reputable sources, and as well as just actual go out. And for me, my customers are boat builders. I went out and spoke to lots and lots and lots of boat builders, got letters of intent, basically like, a forecast. What are their sales? What are they predicted they can do? Go to your customers and get your customers to validate what you're doing and give you numbers on that. And then show those numbers to your investors. And even, connect your investors or potential investors with these customers so they can talk. So it's not just, the excited entrepreneur who's blowing up his own story, but basically don't be scared to go out and get in front of the market and collect as much data information as you can. But that was sort of one of the big things that helped us.
And benchmarking is also very good.
Correct.
So you can just compare to others. And then the investor doesn't want you to dilute you too much either, because then it's no intense,
incentive.
To actually work in the company for the founders. So you can have a dialogue with them as well to actually, so it's a good fit for both.
Awesome. So we are actually out of time, but just before we finish, I want to do a very quick, high-level advice for any founders looking to raise. Very, very quick. Any top tips?
Go to Silicon Valley early and start building a network there, because it's much easier to raise capital in the US than anywhere else.
Yep. For me, listen to the advice that you're given. My first product, I spoke to about 100 investors before I was able to raise money, and it's because my business model was slightly wrong. But after 100 people said to me, hey, you should look over here, I should look over there, and everything boomed. So listen to the advice that you're given. Don't just be stubborn. But yeah.
Yeah, and keep on trying, because you will get 100 no's before you get one yes. And
people don't fail, they give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up.
Thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed this. And if you do want to meet any of the startups that are exhibiting as part of our Startup Pavilion, we're located in Hall 7. So please drop by and come and say hello.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.